Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Play Pause. Today we're going to be looking at Apple's new MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, newly released in the last couple of weeks, specifically due to their new Apple Silicon. You might have heard, if you've been paying any attention in the world of Apple as of late, they have really changed things up, and they made a lot of big promises in terms of performance and battery improvements, just efficiency overall, and what these laptops can do. A lot of bold statements at their press conference not too long ago, in many of which cases I was very skeptical. You may have heard me talking about it in our first podcast several weeks back. But today I want to go in and talk a little bit about, hey, does the hype that they created actually, did they meet it? Did they get up to it? So kicking things off, we have the brand new MacBook Air. This guy here I have been using for as my main work computer over the last week or so, and going from I've been using a 2020 13-inch MacBook Pro, 32 gigs of RAM. Not the highest end processor by any means, but nonetheless, not a low end machine. It was the 4 Thunderbolt port variant, and that's what I've been using probably since spring, summer of this year, shortly after it came out, and I've been really happy with the performance thus far on it. So going to a MacBook Air, something that I haven't used in many, many years, especially only 8 gigs of RAM, I was a little bit nervous that it wasn't going to quite be able to do the work that I expect of a computer from day to day. But before we jump in, really figure out what it is that's different about the computers, let's talk about what Apple Silicon is. I throw that out there, but to those of you who don't really pay attention to what's going on in that world, let's start off. So Apple Silicon, or more specifically their M1 chip that they have placed into all of these new products, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and the new Mac Mini, they are the direct replacement for the Intel CPU, and in many cases the integrated graphics that come along with it that we were seeing previously in MacBooks, and you can still find on the high end of the Apple lineup of computers. The Apple Silicon M1 is an ARM-based processor that is designed and manufactured by Apple for Apple computers. They've been doing this for probably about a decade when it comes to their iPhone and iPad devices, making their own processors, and they've had some really great success. They're managing to get great battery life, really good performance, and they get to do everything in-house. They get to develop it exactly for the purpose that they want to develop it for. They're not relying on a third party to come out and try to develop something, put it into their machines, yada yada. So it gives Apple a bit more control, which obviously, being Apple, they like to be in control of everything that they do, right down to the insides, everything that is designed for their devices. The M1 is on a 5nm process, which is actually, as far as I'm aware, a first for desktop or notebook portable personal computers. So not using a small processor in a mobile device, but rather, just this really tiny, very efficient processor. It's producing very low heat, which is a key part of what Apple is aiming to do here, make something that is going to create a low amount of heat to the point that there's not even a fan in the MacBook Air, while keeping the performance high. And you might wonder, how can they do something like that? How can they pull something off like that? Well, it's a lot of really crafty engineering. They are basically putting everything into a single system on a chip. One chip stores your GPU, it stores your CPU, so all of the computing that gets done inside the computer is done in this one chip. Very small, not a lot of room for things to move around. What it results in is a 3 times improvement in performance per watt of energy used, which is pretty incredible, but did they actually pull it off? That's what they state. That's what they've stated at their press conference. That's what they've stated on their website. And let me say this. On Tuesday of this week, I decided something that I never do. I wanted to see, can I get through an entire workday on a single battery charge? Not even just a single full battery charge. I actually started it at 90% on Tuesday, and I went from about 8:30 a.m. usually start around that time, and I worked until 5 p.m. that day. Took half an hour to an hour for lunch, where I had the computer and sleep. But outside of that, the computer was on, being used. I was in meets, Google Meet, throughout most of the day, and I actually realized about halfway through the day I wasn't even using the optimized version of Google Chrome or Slack for Apple Silicon. You might be wondering, what do you mean, Matt? What's this optimized version? And I'll get to that. But think about this, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., starting at 90% battery charge. I still had about 10% battery life at the end of the day, which you might sit there and say to yourself, is that really all that impressive? It really is. Most days, if I back pre-COVID lockdown, when I was in the office, if I was out using my computer and I was, in a back-to-back call, you can be absolutely sure I had a charger with me, because by the time I got through that second meeting, maybe I was 2 hours in, I was looking at my battery and it was getting down real quick. So going to this Air that I was able to use the entire day on battery life absolutely blew my mind. I was really impressed. I was messaging my coworker saying, like, I am still using this computer not plugged in from this morning. I was very impressed. So well done, Apple. MacBook Air, full day of work, no problem. Specifically, the battery life that Apple states is up to 18 hours on the MacBook Air, which previously 12 hours, I believe, was the previous record that Apple was able to accomplish on a MacBook portable, and that was with the previous MacBook Air. So getting up to 18 hours is impressive, but what's more impressive is this guy, the MacBook Pro 13-inch with Apple Silicon in it. Gets up to 20 hours of battery life. They doubled the battery. 10 hours to 20. We are talking iPad levels of battery life now, which, you might be sitting there and saying, like, hey, why do I need to buy an iPad if I can get a Mac that can run iOS apps? That's right. Because it's running Apple Silicon, it's the same basic idea of what they are manufacturing for their iPads and iPhones. You can run iOS apps, iPad apps, iPhone apps. You can run them on this. You still don't have a touchscreen, so it might not be the most, it might not be the smoothest experience, but you can run them, and you can get that same great battery life. So you might be really wondering, why do I need an iPad? Why wouldn't I just buy a MacBook now? Well, you're still missing that touchscreen. The touchscreen, the portability of an iPad, something that I use every single day on my couch. When I'm upstairs before bed, I want to watch a movie or do some internet browsing. It's still a more comfortable experience than trying to sit there with the laptop open on your legs and you're trying to find a comfortable position. I still prefer using an iPad in a lot of those situations, but your mileage may vary. Different people enjoy different things. So don't let me tell you what you like. Having the iPad, for me, is still a better experience when I'm away from the desk, when I'm not thinking about work and I can kind of switch modes to that, wanting to relax and just do some basic internet browsing. I will switch to my iPad. Coming back to the MacBooks though, the MacBook Pro has now taken what the MacBook Air had over it, which was battery life. Yes, you have a fan in the MacBook Pro, so it may be a little bit louder, but that can also come at your benefit as your performance should be able to go longer when the heat ramps up, and you can continue to use the computer at a high performance level before the thermal throttling comes in and slows that processor down. Not that I've really noticed that as being a big issue as of yet. These really don't run very hot. The fact that I could run that MacBook Air on video calls, something that usually is just got my fans on my other Intel-based MacBook just whirring, really quickly. It's incredible. It's amazing how cool they run to the touch. Sometimes you feel like you touch the bottom of your MacBook or the top of it when you've been using it for a while, especially when you're on a video call. It's just burning. It's basically a heater. These things run cool, which is so impressive. So you might be wondering, what is this going to cost me? Well, the new MacBook Air starts at $1299 Canadian, the Pro at $1699. You can get up to a maximum of 16 gigs of RAM and a maximum of 2 Thunderbolt 2 ports. And you might be wondering, hey, what's the deal here, Apple? Why can't I get 4 Thunderbolt ports on these new Apple Silicon Macs? Well, the high-end Macs, they're still using Intel processors. That's where you can get your 4 Thunderbolt ports. But you might be wondering, hey, I really want to buy one of these Apple Silicon Macs. They sound like they're going to do what I need from it. I'm doing basic internet browsing, emailing, going to be using it for work. Maybe I'm a student. these are great options. Even with some of the oddities when it comes to compatibility, most third-party applications right now still need to be optimized to use Apple Silicon. Not to say that you can't run them. I've been able to run almost all applications without a problem. I've had one or two that gave me an error here or there, and you know what, I have no doubt that they're going to get sorted out in due time, as most applications run either natively, they've created an optimized application for the new Apple Silicon MacBooks. In other cases, you are emulating more or less something called Rosetta 2. It allows you to run Intel developed applications on the new Apple Silicon Macs. So for the most part, compatibility has been really, really excellent. Things have been working. Even the apps that aren't optimized, they run pretty good. I did see an obvious improvement in the overall snappiness and performance of Google Chrome once I switched over. But yeah, back to the question, should you buy one? Do your research. Figure out what it is that you want to do on it. If you are still expecting the most performance out of a computer, well, you know what? These, when it comes to single-threaded performance, you can check the benchmarks out. Single-threaded performance is through the roof. Absolutely excellent. Multi-threaded is fine, but if you're doing a lot of multi-threaded applications, you're going to want to still look at the Intel-based Macs, or wait. If the rumors are believed to be true, the M1X processor is not too far away. That should be coming out in the next couple of months, which means we should be seeing the higher end Macs get replaced, the Intel Macs being replaced with Apple Silicon, with that M1X chip, hopefully bring the 4 ports of Thunderbolt 3 or USB 4. And hopefully at that time we also get options for up to 32 gigs of RAM. So all in all, really impressed with these two guys. I have more testing to do on this one, but the MacBook Air I was able to use all week without a problem, 8 gigs of RAM. Wow, absolutely impressed. So if you're in the market for a new laptop and you don't need the most powerful computer, or for that matter, the most ports, definitely worth a look, especially if you are looking to buy Apple specifically. If you are expecting to get the most out of it, if you're a creator, you need to run a lot of video editing applications, maybe hold off, wait to see what's going on with that M1X chip, and when that comes out, likely early next year. Anyway guys, thanks so much for coming and checking this video out. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit that like button or hit the subscribe so you can be notified for our future episodes as well. Also make sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting app, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or other. We're basically available on all of them, and we talk about every single week the Mandalorian episodes that are going on and all things tech. Whatever we feel like talking about that week. Last week we had our friend Steph on and had a great conversation about all things food, you name it. So be sure to check that out, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.